Hi everyone, it's good to be back. In the first week of November last year, news came out of Italy of the find of over 24 bronze sculptures made during an excavation of an old Etruscan bath in San Casciano Dei Bagni in Italy. Historians and archaeologists soon concluded that this was an extraordinarily important find. What made the situation even more interesting was that the sacrificed statues for these had once been offerings, contained both Etruscan and Roman writing. They take us to a point in history right where Roman culture had started to replace Etruscan north of Rome. I am your host Martin Eriksson. Welcome to Ancient History. The find was made in an old Etruscan thermal bathhouse in San Casciano dei Bagni, a small hilltop town in what is today the Siena region in Tuscany. In early Roman times, this was part of Etruria. It was conquered by the Romans between the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE. For those not familiar with the Etruscans, here follows a very short orientation. The Etruscans are a bit of an historical enigma. They primarily inhabited the regions in northwestern Italy, from just north of Rome in the south up to Pisa in the north. They dominated the area some 500 years before the Roman Republic came to be. Between 750 and 500 BCE, they expanded their influence both south along the coast. In fact, some of Rome's early kings were Etruscan, and northeast towards Patavium, and across the sea to Corsica. As it were, the Etruscans came to heavily influence parts of Roman culture. Just one example is the Latin alphabet, which was an adoption of its Etruscan counterpart. Today, we can read most of the language, but they have left no longer text. So all we have is mainly funerary inscriptions and other short texts. To complicate things, we still do not know what language group the language belongs to. It is in any case not ordinary Indo-European. Much point to that it belongs to the same language group as the Rhaetians in the Alps and the Lemnian language in the Aegean. As such, it is an pre-Indo-European language. However, DNA tests shows that they share the same DNA markers as other peoples in the area. Local groups had sometime in the distant past probably been conquered and dominated by invading peoples, adopting their language. The ancient spa was built by the Etruscans. It is believed to have been built in the 3rd century BCE. It was later enlarged by the Romans and included fountains, sculptures and altars. It became well known and therefore also visited by different emperors, not the least Augustus. People came here to tend to their health, or for general imagined therapeutic benefits. The retreat was active all the way to the 5th century CE, when it was closed, although not totally destroyed by the Christians, since public bathing became banned. At that time, the pools were sealed with heavy stone pillars, and the divine sculptures were left in the once sacred waters. And it was when this seal was removed that archaeologists did the spectacular find, having been preserved in the oxygen-deprived mud, rich on minerals like calcium and magnesium. Most of the statues date between the 2nd century BCE and the 1st century CE. And at this point, the Romans had not only conquered the area, but Roman culture and ethnicity was starting to replace the Etruscan counterpart. The bronzes themselves is thought to have been part of this sanctuary before they, probably in the 1st century CE, were sunken into the waters of the bath. Since the remains are both Roman and Etruscan, excavators have interpreted the area as a unique multicultural and multilingual haven of peace. I think that such statements are not that well supported. To me, it feels more like wishful thinking. We must ask ourselves why the inhabitants of the area suddenly decided to sink their statues in the waters. Still, we must recognize that the writing on the statues actually point to them being sacrifices. Yet they do not reveal anything right now about a peaceful coexistence between Romans and Etruscans. Anyhow, Roman and Etruscan culture here apparently went side by side for a while, during the time of transition and conflict, where one culture was being replaced by another, often violently outside the boundary of the sanctuary. The find consists not only of the 24 larger statues. Deposited over them were about 6,000 gold, silver and bronze coins. Adding to this, several smaller figurines is also part of the treasure, having been preserved in the warm, muddy waters over millennia. Why is it so then, one might ask? The theory is that the statues came from an upper strata settlement. The inscriptions seem to mention the influential families of the area, and finds of bronze statues are rare. Most similar finds that has been made are made of terracotta. The inscriptions also speak to the divinity of the fountain. The offering of coins and the statues is clearly yet another evidence of how far back the habit of offering in pools and springs actually stretches, stretching backwards from today's Fontana di Trevi to ancient baths and North European bog corpses. To highlight a few traditions, offering to the water was made in hope of getting something back, as is still the case. Among the finds we see a sleeping ephebe, that is, a young male. Close to him was also a Hagia, which was the goddess of health, having a snake, the still used symbol for healing and medicine, wrapped around her arm. Adding to these, a statue of Apollo has also been found. Apparently, these deities were venerated at the spa, revealing its role as a place for healing. There are also other sculptures, like emperors, children and women, and already in August last year, some fertility statues were found. And on this puto, or child, there is clearly visible writing on his thigh. One of the most frequently shown pictures so far shows a woman in full range of jewelry, perhaps showing us an example of how a woman of that time should look. Most or all of the sculptures are believed to have been made by local craftsmen, and this goes also for the plentiful of other votive offerings found. The find is without doubt the largest one of preserved bronzes ever made in Italy, and one of the most important in the Mediterranean region. Excavations continues in 2023, and in time, all the finds will be on display in San Casciano, close to the site. Meanwhile, this winter, the finds have been going through restoration and preservation. For more information, we will have to wait for the publication of the translation of the different inscriptions. Thank you for watching. Hi again. If you like this episode, leave a comment or hit that like button, and perhaps share a link with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you would like to help me make even better documentaries about the past in the future, please consider joining me at Patreon. See you soon.